Okay. Hello. I'm the University Archivist at LSU Alexandria, up here away from the flooding that has been occurring in South Louisiana, but I want to help the folks in South Louisiana. You've lost everything you own. You don't have to lose your memories as well. So, and there, let me say the top couple of things. First of all, this is only about document recovery, and it is about recovery after the documents have been in water for a bit. We can absolutely talk about preventative measures maybe in another video, but right now I want to talk about document recovery. Photograph recovery has actually already been covered by colleagues of mine from the diocese of both New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and please forgive me if one of those is an archdiocese and I did not say that correctly, but my colleagues Lee Loomis from New Orleans, and Ann Bolton and Katie Oob from Baton Rouge have done a great video on how to save photographs, and photographs are actually the easier one to save. So that's happy news if you are really worried about your photographs. Your documents, and you might not even be as worried about your documents, because if it's a death certificate, a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, a diploma, those are meaningful, but they're on file with a federal or state or parish body. You can get those back. Not federal, but you can get those back. Those I would even not save them. Even the very, very old ones in your family, it's entirely possible that those can be reissued. It's never the same, but you will have the information. Now, a lot of folks do collect newspaper clippings of events that happen, and those are great. Those are completely 100% reproducible. Let them just drown. Do not waste your time, because when you are doing recovery, you probably already know this if you are someone who has suffered damage, you probably are going to have to perform triage, and not every document can be saved. And that is painful for me to say. It is painful to hear. Not every document can be saved. So you have to prioritize the ones that are the most important, the ones that are the most unique, maybe the most fragile, the ones that contain the most value to you, your family, your lives, your legacy. Again, a scrapbook, those fellas are tricky on under the best of circumstances, and I feel like that rate's an entirely different event, because scrapbooks, again, they get a whole video by themselves on a good day. We're going to set the scrapbooks aside and really just focus on documents, because they could be your family letters, your diaries, maybe you had some business papers, and that's really was the genesis for this, me thinking that this project was necessary. Maybe you run a business out of your home, or maybe you just have business papers in your home, and those are really important, and those are going to need to be recovered if possible. So, and there are several resources. You can go to the Northeast Document Conservation Center has a really great list. It's the website here. They have an entire list under their disaster response and recovery, and all of these are links. And I looked at several of these. Non-paper based archival collection salvage for documents and for artifacts. Also, I'm sorry, this is a national park. This is a national park conservagram. The Northeast Document Conservation Center over here also has, so yes, moldy books and paper, wet photographs, and those are really long, lovely digitized pamphlets, leaflets on exactly what you need to do to take care of those. So you do need a toolkit to recover documents, and you don't have to have fancy archival items to do that. You do need, and I've got several. This is mine from my professional archives, and I did get this from Lyrasis, which is a consortium for libraries, archives, and museums. So it is professionally based, but they're pretty standard kind of ideas, and these are obviously for a disaster in an institution, but just you know, buckets and mops and sponges and paper towels and paper towels and paper towels, also some paper towels and paper towels, because you're going to need to dry out those documents and those books. And again, books, most books in your collection are going to be, you're just going to be able to get them someplace else. You may have some one-of-a-kind first editions, and that's a separate discussion. But just some tools that you'll need, and I have my little bucket over here, again, paper towels and paper towels. And it's never a bad idea to be safe, safety goggles, and they do fit right over my glasses. So, and it's an incredibly attractive look. You'll want to rock this look as often as possible. And just in case, because mold will grow on papers, on anything. Mold is probably growing on me as I stand here. This is Louisiana. So mold is going to grow when you don't have any air conditioning and you have the water and you have these really great opportunities for mold to feast on your memories, and that's what they're doing. So, and those are dangerous to you, the molds. You're going to be dangerous to the mold, but the mold is dangerous to you as well, so you might want to put on a face mask, and then you can use gloves. And we'll take just a moment to talk about gloves and how folks associate archival work with white cotton gloves. Absolutely not. Obviously, we're talking about documents that might be wet, but you never actually need cotton gloves. But you can, and you can get these anywhere. These are available at Walmart or at Lowe's or just a lot of supply places. So just your lovely little gloves like this. And again, a disclaimer, I've never actually been part of a disaster in my archives or in my home, so I do not speak from personal experience. You please, if you have anything that is a good idea that I'm not going to talk about and you want to tell me about it so that I can share with others, please, Michelle Riggs, mriggs@lsua.edu. Please let me know. I want to know. I want to be able to help folks as much as possible. So I created some disaster here. I took some papers that were just copies, so there's nothing fragile or nothing is essential here. Let's see. Where did I put my Mylar? Here's my Mylar. Okay, so what I did was these papers I got soaking wet in the sink. And the first thing you're going to want to do when you are gathering papers, because you know how papers are, they're so fragile, they tear easily. As you can see, I tore these in my zeal stomping them into the mud. They're very, very easy to tear, so very, very, very carefully collect them up. And if you collect them up with a big old wad of mud, I mean, if it's going to save your documents, do that and throw them into the freezer as quickly as you can. Just throw them in there. The freezer is going to, you know, stop the mold. It won't kill the mold. It's going to stop the mold from growing, which is great. That's everything you want it to do. And it's going to actually eventually dry out. Now, these papers only sat in the freezer in our, just regular the freezer on top of a refrigerator. They only sat in there for about 24 hours, and they did not actually dry all the way. That might be your experience as well. I believe best practices indicates 10 below for a week. I think everybody knows that best practices are very difficult to introduce into a real world situation. Usually that's what we're talking about, not best practices, but boots on the ground, the best you can make out of a situation. So my first group that I soaked in the sink, I just wadded some papers together and I soaked them, and I stuck a piece of paper on the bottom that has pencil writing. So, and this is a trick when I was reading those wonderful leaflets from NEDCC. This is a piece of, this is a tool that is very library specific, archive specific, but it's heavy plastic. It's actually Mylar. You're thinking balloons, but think when you check a book out of the library and it's got the crinkly plastic around it, around the book jacket, it's Mylar, and that's what this is. Heavy plastic, plastic that I pulled off of something that did not work. I tried it, it did not work, but it is super, super cool. I just pressed it against this piece of paper, and I was able to lift it right off. Again, another archives tool, but anything that's flat like that. Okay. I was going to say, it was working a moment ago, and here we go. And it lifts right off. And you're going to want to, fancy word, interleave, but you know, put something in between each. And then we're going to and if I really wanted to dry that out because I'm worried about it, because I want to keep it, I would just again put another piece of paper towel on top of it. And you're going to want circulating air, but not fans blowing onto your documents. You want the fans pointed away from the documents, but you want the air to circulate, because that will assist with the drying, and it will also discourage mold. And the thing about mold is the spores get, and you want to do that outside, because the spores are going to go where they can, and they might come to you, and they can be really dangerous. They can certainly exacerbate allergies. You don't want mold in your mouth, in your lungs. So if you have circulating air, again, if you don't have a face mask, should help with that. So, and then that one just came off quite easily. But I wanted to, I wrote in pencil on this one, and I wanted to do that to see how well it would last. And it did. The pencil really survived, and I was concerned about that, because I was thinking about pens and ink running, and that's why I attached this one to see how much the ink would run. And it really didn't. And this ink is from the 60s or 70s, so it's old ink. And it was soaking wet. It looks partially dried here, but it lasted quite well, so that's very nice. Now these that I stomped into the mud, you're going to need, of course, you want them to dry out. And then, of course, you're going to want to get a brush, which I don't have in my kit, and just brush the dirt off. You can do that. And if you haven't torn them all to pieces like I have, because the thing is, if you've ever dropped a book in the bathtub, as I have, you know when paper gets wet, it's very difficult to get it to ever be the same. If it's a piece of paper, I guess you could iron it dry, flat, not dry, but flat. You could, but you might not want to take that chance depending on what your document is. And we can discuss quality of paper, anything before 1880 and after 1980. There's an entire century where paper was no good. That's a fun story, but it's not today's story. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So if you just are not going to be able to get your paper back, you can always take your camera, and there are several free apps where you can take a PDF, and you're going to want a PDF. PDF is not manipulatable like a photograph can be, and this is a document, because you can just take your PDF on your camera. Some of the apps are free, some might have a small fee to them, and then you can go and print them at a copy store or your local public library, who is always there to assist you. Similarly, you can get a wand scanner. They're anywhere from $50 to probably $75. I'm sure you can get one for under $100, and just scan it. Again, it's better when it was dry and whole and safe and sound, but to capture the information, if you fear that the document's not going to be the same, to capture the information, again, something like a letter, once it's dried, because you know they wrote on both sides, and the information, it'll bleed through and it'll be difficult to read, but just to capture that so that you have it, you can store it digitally. That way everybody in the family can see the letter as well. Never throw away your original unless it is damaged so far beyond recovery that it's just better to be pulp and go to the paper resting place in the ground. But digitization is not for preservation. Digitization really is just an access tool, so you're going to want to keep anything that you digitize. So these fellas, again, I think I have 3 pieces of paper here. These I only did yesterday afternoon, and it wasn't a water puddle, it was just mud, just wet dirt. So I stomped them into the ground and it tore, but I think that's another fun real world experience. And then again, I don't know if a flathead screwdriver would work. I don't know if it's long enough and flat enough. A knife, a butter knife, that would work just fine. And just come in and separate. And no, you don't have to wear gloves. If it's covered with goop and goo and gross, you might want to. These are not that bad, although they do have a bit of they had a fishy odor earlier. I don't know why. The mud was underneath our tree here on campus. But you can separate very, very, very slowly and carefully. These have dried a bit, so they're easier to separate than they were. And obviously you're going to want them to dry because they're just going to be much easier to work with. Maybe, you know what, maybe not fully all the way, because they may be harder to get apart if they've fully dried, in which case they've already been wet once. Just re-wet them. Because right now we're talking about recovery, and anything is better than what we had. And we absolutely want everyone to come out okay, but we know that not everyone's going to survive. And again, you're going to want to do this with your most valued documents, and not anything that you can duplicate anywhere else. Wow, that's a real quandary there. That's really stuck together. That's where it helps to have the flat tool. Again, a butter knife should work. It's not going to be quite as flat as this, but it should get the job done. Oh, and it's separating. Painstakingly. Hooray! We got them apart. And again, you're just going to interleave with the paper towels and let the paper towels absorb as much as possible. Let it air dry with maybe some circulating air if you can. And again, there are ways to dry them. You can use a vacuum, yes. Obviously, you're going to want to use a special fancy professional tool vacuum, but a vacuum with a HEPA, and I've got what that stands for on one of my little signs over here. So I know the A is air. A HEPA filter, and that's, I think, okay inside if you can do this outside, but you're going to want to put a screen over that, a sieve over the nozzle, so that it doesn't suck to your document. The screen will kind of give you that separate and let the air flow through at the same time. Then you can pick them up, and again, if it's not too strong a suction, again, gently pull them apart from each other. So, the thing about documents is you're going to need a gigantic space. You're going to need as much space as possible. If they're really dirty, and this is something I did not demonstrate because I didn't, and because I don't have the correct tools. I have a lovely mop bucket here, but I do not have like a flat bin for like rinsing dishes in. That would be one thing you could do while they're still wet. Take them, especially if the paper is particularly sturdy, depending on the document, and rinse them in the bins. Have 2 or 3 and take them out of one, and then another and another, like you're doing if you're gonna fry chicken. And rinse that water off. You know, again, just zhuzh it gently. Documents are so fragile. Paper is so fragile. Zhuzh the dirt, and then transfer. If you have a flat thing that you can lift up, and then transfer them to the next bin and rinse that water off, because, or that dirt off, because there are foul things that could be there, and possibly little critter corpses. Ants spring to mind, who knows what's there. So maybe another reason why you want to wear protective gear. So if you need to wash off your documents, absolutely, there's several bins in the careful, but if you don't, you can wait till it's dried, and again, brush off the dirt. Word about mold, and I'm almost finished. A word about mold: do not try to kill the mold. You can only kill it with chemicals, so you're thinking Lysol or bleach. Please do not do that. That will damage your documents. If it even removes the mold at all, it may leave them more susceptible for infestations of mold or mildew down the road. And this is Louisiana. There's going to be too much opportunity for mold and mildew to form. There's no safe chemical agent. Not safe for paper, and certainly not safe for you. So do not try to chemically kill the mold. You do not want to deal with mold that is still growing, that is slimy. And again, I've actually never encountered live active mold. I'm assuming it's like lichen, slimy and gross and smelly and spiderwebby, which lichen is not any of those things, but it is green. You want to wait until your mold has gone dormant, which freezing will do. Heat can do, again, 140-degree heat, which you don't want to be in, and really your documents don't either. They don't like the heat, they don't like the light. They want to be cool, dark, and dry. So air drying, separating out anything with active growing mold, get it away from everyone else. It is a disease. It will infect your papers and books and photographs and you. Getting them away, letting that mold go dormant, again, preferably freezing. That's just the easiest, quickest way to do it. And then once it is dormant, it's not dead, but it's dormant and it's dry and powdery, and you can just brush that off just like it's dirt. You'll want a brush, which again, I don't have in my toolkit. Note to self, get a brush. And you can get rid of it that way. And depending on, and you're probably, again, you may have some staining. Well, we don't want that. We don't. The best thing, I mean, if it's safe enough, in safe enough conditions, to get it wet again so that you can get the dirt off. However, again, just like you cannot save every document, I personally feel that the rips and the tears and the stains that a document exhibits, it's like my own wrinkle right here. That's the life I've lived. This is the life the document lived. You don't ever want it to be that distressed, but if you can, maybe you can see these tears and stains as evidence of survival of this terrible event, or whatever your disaster is. Maybe you just had a pipe burst in your home and you weren't overtaken by rivers and rains. And of course, I hope that this was of help to you at all. If you have suggestions, if you have comments, Michelle Riggs, mriggs@lsua.edu. Please send them to me, and I hope that you are well. Thank you.